So in today's video, we're going to discuss how I completely fried my Zhiyun Crane 2S, and I did it in a little bit of a rush for a good reason, but unfortunately this thing is completely unusable now. So we'll discuss how, and it is a little bit of a warning for any of you that are using Zhiyun gimbals that use this battery or this type of battery, because what I did is easily doable, and unfortunately if you do it, it completely fries the gimbal, it becomes unusable, and if you're out of warranty, the cost to repair it is basically the price of buying a brand new one. Let's hit it. Hey everybody, and welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Geoff Fagien, and yes, unfortunately, I'm holding the dead husk of my Zhiyun Crane 2S, a gimbal that I have loved for the past year. I've used it a lot with my red Komodo, with my Blackmagic Pocket 4K and 6K. Due to its quick release system and some of the accessories I bought from SMALLRIG, it quickly became one of my favorite gimbals after moving from a DJI Ronin M and the Weebill S. So let's start off by telling you the story of how this happened. First, if you have these batteries, you know, on the Crane 2S and some of the other Zhiyun gimbals, there's these little battery terminals right here, and unfortunately they look the same on the top and the bottom. There are markations right here and right here on the positive, down below right here, the positive, and the negative up here, terminals of the batteries. However, other than looking at these little icons that are slightly etched into the plastic of the gimbal, the actual terminals right here look exactly the same. So in a rush, if instead of putting them the right way, you put them in the wrong way, it will completely fry the gimbal as if you were putting in a D-tap reverse into a D-tap port. I didn't even power the gimbal, and I saw smoke coming out of the gimbal the second I put these in a rush. Now, how would I make such a clumsy mistake? Well, it's semi-easy, but I did it in a rush, unfortunately. We had a pretty big celebrity come into the office that was a comedian. He has some big specials out right now, and we wanted to get some B-roll of him in the office, and I needed to set up this gimbal really quickly. So luckily, I did a lot of the balancing earlier that day for an event that I was supposed to shoot a few days later. And I went to go put the batteries in really quickly because he was walking in. And I just didn't pay attention, and I put the batteries in wrong because I looked at the terminals. I just went boop, boop, put them all in. And as I screwed the thing together, I started smelling like a fire smoke smell. And then I started seeing smoke come out of this thing. Quickly undid the bottom and took the batteries out, and it all looked okay. Although, if you even smell it now, there's still a little bit of a smoke smell to it, as I just smelled. And this is now like 4 days later, but the gimbal wouldn't turn on at that point. Weirdly enough, if I put the batteries in and I hooked up a USB into the USB-C port right here, weirdly enough, I would actually be able to get the LCD screen to power on. However, it would quickly go to upgrading and then would give me some errors and turn off again. So in essence, if you plug in the batteries in reverse, you are going to fry your gimbal. Now, it does sound like an obvious statement. If you're going to plug in a power into the inverse polarity, you're probably going to fry your electronic equipment. However, with D-taps, they have the ports in the shape of a D, and so it is a little bit harder to plug those in reverse, although you've probably heard horror stories, it can be done. With this gimbal, it's a lot easier because these terminals look the same no matter what. Although again, there are markings here. In a rush, it's hard to see the markings, especially if you don't have light like I do here on these little markings right now. So one thing I would say to Zhiyun is I would probably move to a different battery system, because when you look at gimbals like the DJI gimbals, a lot of other power source driven products, they do use very similar batteries to this, but typically they are built into some larger casing that prevents you from being able to put them in the wrong way. It basically dummy proofs the electronic itself. And so it is a little unfortunate that Zhiyun doesn't do that, and I feel like they don't do it because they're more of the budget gimbal brand, but I really do think they should look into doing it, because now, because of this, and because I have to buy a new gimbal, I'm going to move on to an RS2, because you don't have those issues with the DJI gimbals. Coming from the DJI Ronin M I never had those kinds of issues. I literally put the battery in really quick one way and I was good to go if I was balanced. And that has just not been the case with this gimbal. But again, I have really enjoyed using the Zhiyun Crane 2S over the past year. But now this thing is a paperweight. I don't know if I'm gonna throw it out or leave it on display, but I will probably end up throwing it out or something like that. It's unfortunate. I've got a bunch of accessories to it that are now basically paperweights as well. But it was a heavy learning lesson. So if you are an owner of any kind of Zhiyun gimbal that does use these kinds of batteries, just be aware if you put them in reverse, you are gonna fry your gimbal. And I don't know if it's even covered under warranty because I've had this for a little bit over a year, so it's already out of warranty, so I wasn't even able to see if it covered it. But if you're out of warranty, it definitely costs almost as much as buying a new gimbal to replace, so it's not worth it. So just be aware, and I hope you can learn from my silly mistake. Again, I made it in a rush. Definitely not a mistake I'll ever make again, but I figured I would pass it all off to you on the channel just so you would be aware of it. So I hope you got knowledge out of today's video. If you did, if you found it funny, please leave a comment in the comments below. And if you got value out of today's video, please make sure to hit that like, subscribe, and notification bell to keep up to date with the latest videos on the channel. Till next time, my name's Geoff Fagien. Thank you for watching, everybody, and I will see you in the next video.